everybody, it's Romania Black, and yes, I am aware I'm wearing an Attack on Titan hoodie, watching 86, and I am going to try to be, it's a new year resolutions. I'm going to try to not as often compare 86 to Attack on Titan, but I put this hoodie on because it's really cold and dreary and rainy outside today, and I was like, oh yeah, this is very on the nose. But I hope y'all are having a good weekend. Yes, so last week I felt a lot better going into episode 12. I felt a lot better going in with my own preconceived notions about everything and just kind of settling back into the series. We're in the second core. There are a lot of questions and there are a lot of decisions that I'm like, I don't know what this means, but I'm very curious. And so I like the fact that all 5 of our remaining 86 people have lived, and they're in this new Federacy, and things are different, very different than they were in not only the 86 district, but San Magnolia. Meanwhile, Lena is she's just trucking right along, doing what she can, making her way downtown, doing whatever she can to help with the situation. So I'm very curious because Lena, she's working with Cyclops right now, and that 86 division that she's been demoted to, she doesn't really think, I think she has faith that Sheen and the others are maybe alive, but it's a very slim hope. She's just kind of holding on to it because she's kept their pictures up there on the bulletin board to show she still believes there's a chance. I don't blame her, but I think she's also kind of realistic where she's like, and she's trying to keep herself a little bit more at arm's length from Cyclops, still treating Cyclops with respect. Ida is her name, but still treating her with respect, but at the same time, understanding that if you get real close and attached and you lose them, it's gonna hurt. So she's kind of, trained herself seemingly for that. Meanwhile, Sheen and the others, we met this empress or princess or whatever, and she's interesting. I feel like child characters are usually either very polarizing. They are either people think that they're fun and quirky and interesting and maybe cute and adorable, or others find them absolutely annoying. She's kind of riding that line. There's a little mystery to her that makes her not annoying to me. I don't think she's annoying, but she has that kind of a precocious kid attitude that you're like, okay, there's a reason I don't have a child. But I think she's mysterious, and she is clearly tied to the voice and the Legionnaire that Sheen saw earlier in that last skirmish. So there's something there. The president is super suspicious. There's definitely something underneath the veneer of them being like, I'm just a kindly old daddy warbucks. And I'm like, not in this show, you ain't. I highly doubt that. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just as right as rain, the most innocent being, but I don't think so. This series isn't that happy. So I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but I'm curious. We've met, there's a new army here with the Federacy. I like Spider-Woman. She's the only one we've really gotten any development with at all, or any inkling of, but I like her design. I like her name. I like her attitude in the 5 seconds that we've met her. So I hope we get more with that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see what's going on. Now, I still have been told, Mevlin has been very super kind, so thank you, Mevlin, for downloading and putting together the fan translations for these episodes. I could not do that myself, so I am eternally grateful. So thank you, Mevlin. Let's all give Mevlin much thanks for getting the fan translations. I'm super appreciative of it. But I've been told by the moderators for this episode 13, and next episode 14, to skip the OP. And honestly, I may skip the ED as well, because the ED, watching it last week, I was like, ooh, this feels like it could be some spoilery stuff. I don't know. I feel like it gives a little away. I don't know. So I'm probably going to skip over and not pay much attention to the ED. Or if I do watch through the ED, I'll probably talk through it instead of paying attention, because I want to get to, this series is ripe with post-credit, mid-credit scenes, so I don't want to skip over any of those. But luckily, the way that I watch it on my computer, I can kind of see how much time is left. So if there's a big chunk of time, then you know that there's probably an end credit scene. So you're not going to be surprised, right? But yeah, we're in the second core. It doesn't seem as doom and gloom, but that seems like a little bit of it seems like that's leading you into a false sense of security before it pulls the rug out from under you. I don't know. This Federacy, there's just something about it. Is it the Matrix? It seems too good to be true. And typically when things seem that way, and maybe not, maybe it's just supposed to be a symbolic representation about how, oh, look at these people. They're actually treating the 86 like normal people, like they should. You know, oh, how awful is Saint Magnolia for being the fascists that they are. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. We'll see. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you all enjoy this reaction discussion, but we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right into episode 13 of 86, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Well, that was a nice little episode. I know we got a lot of exposition dumped towards the end, but I didn't feel like it was warranting Whiteboard Coon. So we'll talk about it when we get to that point. But okay. All right. This was a pretty concise episode. A nice little in-between of, okay, we made it to the Confederacy. Here we are. And now we're ready to move on. Back to the battlefield. We can't have any peace-mongering here. Absolutely not. But there's a couple interesting things that come out of this episode. There is character work, so good. Good. So that is nice to see. But it's fascinating. We need to talk about this, I suppose, and kind of go through it. Here's the thing. We get the idea of, I don't know if Frederica is a child, a legit child that's like 11 or 12 years old, but 10 years ago, when the battle between the Legion and Jihad and the Republic started, that would have made her only like 2 or 3. So there's a couple of options here. Either she's older than she looks, and she just kind of like, because it's weird. Her character at times, like at the beginning of the episode, is very childish, and she does lots of little bratty things. Like, kids are manipulative. They just are. Like, she convinces, Sheen to get her the toy. She convinces Raiden to make her the food. Like, she does things that like a little kid would do. But then at the end of the episode, she does a complete 180, and she's suddenly this eloquent woman spitting like truth bombs about life and everything. And I'm like, make up your mind. Are you a little kid, or are you an adult? Because she talks like an adult at the end of the episode. So you think, well, a 10-year-old would not talk that eloquently. They just wouldn't. I don't care who you are. A 10-year-old doesn't talk that eloquently. And that known, I don't know if you've been around 10-year-olds. They don't talk like that. So either she's older than she looks, or even a prodigy wouldn't talk like that as a 10-year-old. I'm sorry. So either she's older than she looks, and she's just kind of like has this childlike, state at times, or I'm going to question the writing a little bit, because like a 10-year-old doesn't talk like that. No, they're not that profound. I would question the author's knowledge of small children if they were, because she got really profound there at the end, and I was like, okay. So I don't know. I would think it would be a really cool twist if she was actually older, and a lot older than she is, and she uses the fact that she looks like a child to her advantage. That was my thing. I was like, I was waiting for her to tell Raiden, being like, oh, I'm actually 26, and us be like, oh, cool. Because a couple things. One, it would be a really cool twist that she's actually like 20 years old, but we have assumed she's a child, and so that assumption makes us, underestimate her character. That would be really cool, but we don't really get an answer to that in this. Maybe we'll get an answer later. But the other thing is, why would you let a little 10-year-old kid go on the battlefield? Especially if she's the last empress of Jihad. That seems a bit like I feel like the president would want her to, be protected if she's the last empress and the last of this bloodline. But, Sheen apparently is part of this bloodline as well. So there's that. I don't know. But that's curious. Her character is kind of a conundrum to me, because I really like her character. I like Frederica's character a lot. I think she's hilarious. Her character, it's like it's trying to be everything in one. She's trying to be this little kid that's cute and hilarious, but then she's trying to be this profound empress. And I'm like, it's a hard line to toe to try to be all in one. And I'm not sure if it fully works for me. But if she was older and pretending to be a kid, then it would work, because you're like, yes, you have the experience, your brain has matured enough to reach this level, and plus you've been looking into people's minds and seeing things. Okay. Because it would basically be like looking at Sheen if he was a little kid like when he first starts his journey, like when he first meets Fido and everything, and him starts spouting all this profound stuff at the end of the episode, like that wouldn't seem right? So I don't know. That is my main complaint of this episode, is that her character is trying to have its cake and eat it too, and I'm like, unless she's just fooling us all and she's actually a lot older, then it's okay because it would make more sense. But if she's actually a legit 11-year-old that is spouting off all this profound, deep thematic things, I would question the writing a little bit. But that's just me, right? But anyway, I swear though, the moving guys that are with Raiden, there's a guy with a red mohawk. I just watched an episode of Freerin, and there's a guy in the episode, he's just an extra, you barely see him, but he has a red mohawk. It looks exactly like that. And I was like, what a weird coincidence. So I think that was funny. I really liked the concept of this episode, exploring the characters and what they do in peacetime in this moment. I think that's a really cool like thing to show in this episode, and the idea that they're, again, so apparently they're not in the Matrix. Apparently they just magically didn't die in that battle against the Legion. Against all odds, they somehow made it. How, who, why, I don't know. We'll just accept that as anime logic, that they were not killed in that battle they should have been killed in. But fine. But so, okay, so that kind of takes out my theories. There's nothing sinister seemingly underfoot. Okay. Cool. It's just they were saved, and now the Republic wants to let them integrate back into society. And it's like, it is, I do like the idea of it's giving them the opportunity of showing them, had their term of service with the 86 ended and San Magnolia did what they said they were going to do and let them integrate into society, and the society wasn't fascist and let them do so. I do like seeing them be accepted by the people of the Federacy. I do like that. I think that's really cool. And they kind of get a taste of what that peaceful life is integrating back. It's really sad. There is a moment where you kind of feel sad because they want to go back to the battlefield, and you're like, you want to go back and have a death wish and go back. But what makes it make the most sense is that the work isn't done. They still have, like, Sheen's vision of seeing Kaya and all them is like, there are still their comrades that are part of Legion, and until Legion is destroyed, their souls are not going to be able to rest. Their souls are still going to be attached to Legion, and Sheen can't take that. And I don't blame him. I would feel the same way. I know I didn't want to compare it to Attack on Titan, but I am for a hot second, in a good way. Is that in very early on in the series, so it's not really a spoiler, there is a character that wants to advance through the ranks and make it to a position in the higher up ranks, because if you're higher up in that society, then you're kind of like military in the city. You are not actually on the battlefield, so to speak. So that character wants to become like, he wants a posh, like, safe life, a secure life inside the city where he's not on the battlefield, everything's fine and kosher, and they have this little comfy, secure life. And that's what their goal is. And here, I like that we kind of get to see what that would have been like for these characters. They get to have the comfy, cozy life. They're in this peacetime, in this peaceful place. But they all know from experience what it's like to be on the battlefield. And they know that battle is still going on. And so for them, there is a guilt there of being like, we're sitting here enjoying this peace when we know exactly what it's like for the people on the battlefield. That's not fair. And we know that our best use of our talents are going to be on the battlefield. Now, the president brings it up later, being like, well, once the war's over, you're going to have to go back to this life. So are you going to be okay with that? And I think that they hadn't even thought of it that way, because they all think they're going to die. So it's like they all have death wishes. But they just don't think they're going to make it, because that's what they've been Stockholm syndromed and conditioned to think, is that they're all going to die on the battlefield, and that's their end game. With the Republic, there was never this question of, oh, well, once the war's over, you'll be at peace. That was never an option. So here, when the president's like, well, what are you going to do when the battle is over? And they're like, well, we didn't even think about that. But I think at that point, once the Legion, if the Legion is destroyed, then it's a different game, because at that point they could rest easy knowing we've done everything that we can. We've done our duty to our comrades. We've not let them die in vain. We've made sure their souls are at rest. Now we can go back to regular society. But until that happens, we can't we can't rest easy until that's a thing. Now, do I think that maybe the president is weird too, because I can't decide if he is just a big ball of fluff. Maybe he is, but I keep thinking there's something else to his character, and he's not just like a flat character. I keep thinking there's something more to him, and we're gonna get that, but I don't know. I keep thinking that maybe he also wants them to not only be there as civilians because he thinks that that's what they deserve, even though Frederica kind of says, well, now you put them in a prison of pity instead of a prison of oppression, which, again, a 10-year-old saying that. But I'm like, okay, yes, that is true. Like, they feel pity for them. But, you know, the other people in the Republic don't feel pity for them. It's just the president. But my other thought was, is the president, does he not want them to join back in the army? Because are they going to plan? My theory was that it wasn't just stopping the Legion that is the Federacy's goal. I think eventually the Federacy is going to try to attack San Magnolia and take it over. I think that they're not going to stop with destroying the Legion. They're going to go after San Magnolia. Now, I think they will phrase it to our members of the 86 like, well, we're going to liberate 86 and have them be welcomed as members of our own republic, our own Federacy, and they can become citizens here, but we're going to take over San Magnolia and wipe them out. And then that will create a conflict because Lena's on the other side in San Magnolia, and they're going to have to be like, oh, so we're going to destroy Lena, the handler that helped us get here. We're going to have to battle her. Oh, and that's going to become a thing. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that won't be the thing. Maybe it will be instead that they have to destroy Legion, and then maybe the San Magnolia will negotiate with the Federacy of Geod. But I don't think that's going to happen because San Magnolia's government seems like they're all asses. So I think that they're going to try to fight, you know, Geod after this, and then Lena's going to be like, what are we doing? But I don't know. There's a lot of options and a lot of ways this could go. And so I'm hoping that we get to like a deeper thing beyond just destroying the Legion, but we'll have to wait and see. And there's a lot of light novels I know beyond this season discussing whatever they're going to discuss, so we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know. At this point, I don't know. If I read the light novels, I would not react to the anime if they do sequel seasons, because if I already know what's going to happen in the light novel, I would just watch the anime on my own time. So that's going to be a discussion with Patreon to be like, do you want me to read the light novels and then not react to the anime? Or do you want me to wait and see if they make a season 2 and react to it then? Because I don't think I would do both. I don't know. I don't know is the actual answer here. I've not decided on that yet. I'm just now getting back into the show, so we'll see. But I do like that they all seem relatively happy. I feel like Raiden is the most happy with his situation at first. Karina, I feel for Karina a bit, right? I feel for Karina and Theo. Anju makes friends and Raiden makes friends. Sheen makes a friend, which is fun. But Karina and Theo don't seem to make any friends. They just seem that they're like biding their time. They seem like the two that are most, with the exception of Sheen, the most anxious about what to do, because Karina, she's not acting on her crush on Sheen, because I think she knows eventually they're going to go back to the battlefield. I think she has that in mind the entire time, so she's not acting on it. And then Theo just seems kind of lost, and I feel like Theo, all of them are thinking the same thing, but I think Karina and Theo are letting it get to them the most. Anju and Raiden, to me, seem like they have the most emotional maturity in comparison. I mean, Sheen is kind of off in his own category. Of the 4 others besides Sheen, I feel like Raiden and Anju have the most emotional maturity. So they're able to make other friends, and they're able to kind of push off to the side their thoughts, whereas Karina and Theo are just kind of more restless, and it's all bubbling to the surface so much easier, and they're just like, what do we do? They kind of have that reaction to it, which is understandable, right? And they're just biding their time, like just shopping and doing consumerism, or Theo just sketching, you know, he's just biding his time. But all he keeps drawing are members of his group. Now, I felt a little bad for Anju here, because I like that she's made friends, but her friends are kind of like, well, whenever you get married and have kids, and Anju's like, okay. I was like, I would instantly be like, what if I don't want to get married and have kids? I'd be like, what are you going to do then? And they'd be like, oh, and just make it awkward, right? Because I think that Anju, I think she only had eyes for Daya, and now that Daya's gone, she's kind of like, I need to go and save his soul from the battlefield. And then, but I feel like I would like for Anju to be happy and move on. I would ship Anju and Raiden, honestly, even though her and Theo have a moment here. But I feel like Anju is not going to be able to move on to someone else until she can put Daya's soul to rest. Even though, but he's not actually in Legion. That's right. He was shot by Shin, so he's not in Legion. So she could technically move on. But here's the thing: she just lost him like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It's grief is a thing, and I don't think that she's immediately ready to move on from Daya. That's still pretty fresh in her mind. So even though his soul's at rest because Sheen saved him, she's not ready to move on. And I don't think until they all stop Legion is she going to be able to do that. I would like Anju to be able to move on, but I don't think, if I'm being honest, I don't think Anju's going to live. I think she's going to die because I don't see her character being completely satisfied after the battle. I don't know. I just get death flags from Anju. It's just like on my radar, so I don't know. And she's kind of the mother figure, so I don't know. But they all kind of have death flags, so what can we say? And so then, yeah, we have the Central Library. Now, I like it. I had a very Buddy Daddies moment when Sheen was having like all the moms with their kids smiling at him, and he's like, I don't need a mom with a kid. I just love this like Buddy Daddies moment where he's like, why are all these married women after me? For Sheen. Also, I'm sorry, Lena, you got competition. Not from Karina, but from this white-haired friend of Sheen that has come up. Sheen's got a type. Sheen has a type. He just doesn't realize it yet. And his type is the kind-hearted, forward, Albin-looking character, right? I really wanted Sheen to read the story to Nina, but that did not happen. And instead, the friend, like, the new friend, like, has Nina come in and, you know, what's interesting is the guy that has the little sister kind of looks like a male version of Annette, which is interesting, which Sheen would know from his childhood because he lived next door to her. So that's interesting. And of course, it's the Skull Knight book that was Ray's that he's wanting to read. So that's fun. There is an interesting little crack in the surface because the Federacy of Jihad, up until this point, kind of has this like little utopian vibe to it. It's like, oh, everything is right as rain and perfect in old Jihad Federacy. Like they have like everyone's accepting, it's fine, everything is perfect and la-di-da. And then they have the military parade and you're like, okay, they're at war. This makes sense. But there's a little crack there, and that is the brother of Nina telling Sheen that he can't afford to go to school. And so instead, he's going to join the military. And that is interesting to me because that's just like the tiniest little one-liner just thrown out there. But in this perfect little utopian society, the fact that there's people that can't afford to go to school, so instead they're becoming military, there's something there, right? It's interesting. I'm like, okay, all right, that's a little crack there. And Sheen's smart, so he probably picks up on that, which is interesting. I also like the books that are on the shelf here. There's like Sad Cat, which is funny. There's a Christmas book. There's something with like rabbits with, looks like alien rabbits. There's another one with like aliens. Then there's one that's like Gago. It's like a weird goop monster. And there's something that's like a house in the woods. Interesting. All right. But yeah, I was almost shipping this white-haired kid with Sheen for a second. I was like, Lena, you got to hurry up and go over here. But I'm curious, since he's joining the military, if he's going to join and befriend Sheen and then he's going to die. I don't know. There are a lot of parallels with the white-haired character and Ray being the elder brother, right? Being the elder brother, going to battle to protect their sibling. I'm wanting Sheen to make those connections that maybe that's right. Another reason why Ray was fighting was for Sheen. I think he knows that already, but there's a connection there. And then Sheen kind of becoming the big brother to the Empress, to Frederica, is also another tie-in. But she says that the bloodline of her and her family enables her to see people's past and present, which is pretty much Sheen's power. We'll talk about it when we get to it at the end there, right? So Sheen, does that mean that Sheen's family is of this royal bloodline? Is that what we're putting two and two together to figure out? They don't exactly come out and say it, but it's like, well, that would make sense, right? And then girl picks the ugliest toy out of the whole thing. It reminded me of a Kuroko's basketball extra where Momoy's character like picks the ugliest toy out of the festival game. She also picks a bear that's hideous, and that's what she picks, and the other characters are like, oh, that was the one you chose. There's a meaning in that extra for why she picked it, but it instantly made me think of that when we see her pick the ugly bear that looks like a hodgepodge of things together. Which kind of reminds me a little bit of Ray when he was in the Legion and it was all like crisscrossed and mix-matched. So I wonder if there's anything with that. Maybe we'll see that later on. But I like that whenever Frederica tries to get you to do something for her, her face gets really red, like she feels guilty. Like she's like, this isn't going to work. They're not going to do it. And then they're instantly gullible and they do it. So it's funny. And I like at least we see Sheen with a little smile on his face. He doesn't smile enough, so it's good to see Sheen show some emotion and be kind and considerate. Also, that little snowman they make is the most realistic anime snowman I've ever seen in my life. It's just two little blumps and a little grumpy face and a tin bucket on top. It is the most realistic snowman in anime because if you've ever made a snowman, they don't look like the cartoons. Nothing is ever that perfect. That one is realistic, and I think it's hilarious, and I love it. So yeah, we have the cooking classes, we have the moving, we have Karina shopping, Sheen making his friend. Again, Tag on Titan, Sheen's got the red scarf. How fitting. And then kind of like the Skull Knight, though. It's like the red cape of the Skull Knight. And so then back at the headquarters, they're talking about the people exchanging gifts in the Republic. And he's like, what would be good for them, I wonder? They've been here a month. They've all found friends and things to do, and they're fitting in well. It's a good sign they've made friends. They'll be fine. So we have the conversation that Anju's having on the phone where it says, it's that time of year already. A pound cake sounds great. I want to meet somewhere for the festival. My boyfriend has friends, and a few others are talking about the meeting. I'd love to. After the festival, probably after New Year's. There's no date yet. So it's just like there's just their group chat figuring out plans. Meanwhile, you have Sheen with the scarf there and the piece of the Juggernaut with Ray on there, and he's got books that he's reading too. He's reading a lot of books because that's all Sheen has known how to do. And Sheen reads books to take his mind off of things. So I've been curious the whole time he's been in the Federacy if he's been still hearing the voices. If he still hears the voices, I'm assuming he does because he's reading a lot, or maybe he's reading a lot to distract him from this like peaceful, point and to take his mind off of that and the fact that the Legion's still out there hurting the 86 and they're just sitting there, when they could be battling him. I do like one thing I love about Sheen in this episode is I'm sure he'll put the scarf back on when they, go to battle, but I liked this whole episode. He didn't have the scarf on. He was just exposing his neck and exposing his past for everyone to see. And it's like an acceptance. Like he's accepted, yes, this happened with Ray, but I've accepted it. I've made peace with it. I've moved on. I like that a lot. And then the whole thing with Kaya and them is being like, you've taken us with you. You should be able to forget about us, but it still hurts. Staying here hurts. And we see her, she's like, I'm dead. I want to go home. And we see them all as part of the Legion with their heads like being held in their arms and the Legion's eyes there being like, please save us. And Sheen's like, he goes to reach for the gun and he doesn't have it anymore. Right? So yeah, it makes sense why he'd want to go back to the battlefield. And now Frederica is like, I want my knight to be put to rest as well. So we don't know if Kiryu, if it's her brother, if it's her father, if it's a lover. I don't think it's a lover because who knows how old she is. But I feel like it's a brother or her guardian or something. Someone she deeply cares about, just like Sheen cared about Ray. She wants to save him from him being part of Legion. But I don't know, My thing was, and then we have the friend talking about going to the school, the third generation of Vanaganders. So this is the third generation they've made in 10 years, which lines up about right. And he's like, I want to see them because I'm going to operate one. And I wondered if Sheen, like, because the friend with the white hair looks very, the Rance guy, because they said their last name was Rance. He looks very, like, happy, and he's like, oh, I can't wait to go see the Van Ganders because I'm going to be operating one. But his expression and the tone that he has, it seems very happy, but I can't decide if it's just he's, putting on a face and he's actually terrified because he might die and then not be able to see his sister again, or if it's, naivete and he doesn't realize what he's walking into, and Sheen kind of looks at him like, you have no clue what the battlefield is like. And I wonder if Sheen kind of feels like, oh, you don't seem like somebody that would do good on the battlefield. I don't know if that's going to come into play in a later episode. I don't know. We'll just have to see, right? But he notices that Sheen's been looking at the military documents, and then they talk about how he does say this one thing. He's like, right now everything's peaceful there, but there's war all around the border. So it is like a cage in a sense, where everyone there is living this peaceful existence, but outside is all this battle and everything. It's an interesting contrast to San Magnolia in comparison, because both San Magnolia and Giad, they are these city-states that seem peaceful. Everything seems right as rain. Everything's just going along, humdrum life. Everybody's happy and doing great. No worries here. And then on the outside of their borders, there's all this war, right? The difference, obviously, at this point is that for San Magnolia, they're using this population of people, the 86, to fight the battle for them and to kill them to keep the peace within. Whereas for Giad, there is an army of people. It's their own people fighting off the Legion for the sake of those inside. The question for me, though, is, because, it seems like Giad's doing it the right way. They're like, oh, well, yeah, they're just people that have volunteered to be in the army to protect its citizens. Isn't that just and everything? And I'm going to be curious to see if that's actually the case, if Giad is just doing it right so in a way, and people are just volunteering their service and that's the way it should be, or if it's really a lot of the members of the Giad Federacy military are the kind of oppressed populations of Giad, like the young man, that the Rance boy that can't afford to go to school and he wants to keep his sister safe, so it seems really appealing to sign up for the military because maybe you'll get benefits for your sister and she'll get to go see this ocean one day, even if you die. I feel like the show, the first 11 episodes were so cynical and so nihilist and so downtrodden that I just am conditioned at this point to think that Giad is going to have some sinister ulterior motive. And maybe they don't. Maybe they're just a perfect little country. But it just seems like there should be some depth there and something under the surface, right? Because every country has flaws. So what is this country's flaw? Is it really utopia, or is there something scratching the surface? I'm waiting for it to come out, but maybe there isn't. Maybe they're just perfect. I don't know. But also the ocean, I was like, Attack on Titan ocean, I don't want to make these comparisons, but they just keep popping up, so I can't help it, right? But I'm like, that is a death flag if anything. He's like, I want my sister to see the ocean. I'm like, he's going to die, and Sheen's going to take Nina to see the ocean. I call it now. I'm going to call it right now. He's like, so I need this war to end for her. And she looks over, and then he looks at the Skull Knight book. I love that line where he's like, I've rested too long. I love Sheen saying that, where he's like, okay, enough. It's like in Love Actually, when the guy gets the kiss from the girl he's been crushing on at the end. He's like, enough. That's enough. We can move on now. That's exactly what it felt like in this episode right there. And then Karina and all of them kind of come to the point. I like that we have, what I do like about the Giad Federacy is that they keep some of the monuments a nice contrast to San Magnolia. Is that San Magnolia kind of polishes everything over, where everything kind of has this like veneer of perfection over it, even though we as the audience know it is not perfect at all. But everything is glossed over, and it's like, everything's perfectly fine. Nothing bad has ever happened here. Kind of has that mentality. Whereas what I like about Giad is in the scene where Theo's under the gazebo drawing, is that you see the Republic embassy that's been destroyed by battle, and the statue's been like torn off. There's just the ankles there, and they leave the destroyed remnants of that embassy almost like as a reminder, as a historical marker. And I kind of like the idea that the Jihad Confederacy hasn't wiped clean the past. It keeps it there as a reminder. I like that little detail. That's really, really good. My thing is, when Anju was like, I don't know why they took the transmitters. I don't know why they're looking at our Juggernauts. I'm like, I know why they're looking at the transmitters and Juggernauts, because they want to know San Magnolia's technology, because they want to see if they can do better. I'm telling you, I feel like based on that, she's like, I just don't know why they'd look at our Juggernauts. They're just dusty coffins. I guess Theo says that. But I'm like, because they want to know how the Juggernauts work. They want to know exactly what San Magnolia is using against the Legion. I mean, maybe, best case scenario, they just want to know what technology they've been using all this time. So maybe they can extract some of the good data from that equipment and use it, to upgrade their own Vanganders. Maybe they want to use the little transponders like as the technology to kind of see if they can adapt it and make it usable for their own troops to benefit their army. Maybe. Or maybe they're trying to figure out how they can, hardwire and manipulate that stuff when they go to battle with San Magnolia. Because I feel like they're going to go to battle with San Magnolia. I feel like they're going to fight them. When the Legion's gone, they're going to be like, okay, let's go after San Magnolia next. And it's like, we figured out their technology. It's not that great. We're better. So I just don't know. I feel like that's going to be the rug pulled out from under us, being like, well, we're now going to take over them too. So, because human nature, right? Maybe that's not the case. I would like to be an optimist, but this show does not beget optimism in that realm. So I don't know. And it's very curious how Theo hates the cell phone, because he's like, this thing is clunky and stuff, and I could just use this transmitter and instantly talk with somebody. True. I like that Theo is recognizing kind of the benefits of it, because for so long in the series, that transmitter, it looked like an ear tag of a pig. It was oppressive, and it seemed very negative. But Theo kind of recognizes the positive traits of having that versus the cell phone, and realizes kind of, okay, well, this is why they had that technology, right? Bless him. I like Theo does not want to use the cell phone, which is fun. And then they say that Sheen wanted his scarf and his pistol back. And Anju's like, well, Shin was always the one that would help people go to the next life. That was his job as the Reaper. So he clearly, by wanting the pistol back, is ready to go to the battlefield again. And they all kind of come to that conclusion. And I'm glad that Anju brings up that Sheen, his whole goal was to save his brother. But now that he's done that, the last several episodes, it seemed like Sheen was kind of wandering around without a purpose. But after his dream with the other 86 that have passed, it's like, no, he's wanting to help put the others to rest. And stopping Legion and destroying them is a way for that to happen. So it's kind of like he's had a renewed sense of purpose. Which, good for Sheen, because Sheen without a purpose is kind of a dour and scary thing. And I like that Theo kind of says, maybe I'm still trapped too. And Anju's like, yeah, we're all kind of trapped with this sense of we're taking advantage of something that we've not really earned. Our comrades are still trapped as well. We need to save them, and that will free us in return. Like, I like it. It's very good. The themes and everything. And I love his sketch where he's been drawing. He drew the mechanic. He drew the first guy that died. He's drawn Anju, the cat, Fido, the Skull Knight, the Laughing Fox, the cat there, all of that. I love that. I'm like, has he drawn Anju there, or was it her? No, was it Karai that died? I think it was her. Because he liked her. Oh. And then, of course, when Anju's reminiscing about what to do, that's when the guy that looks like Daya walks by. So then we have the military parade, and everybody's like, oh, how cool. Isn't that neat? And then we see Raiden. I like Raiden fidgeting with the gear, like he's just subconsciously thinking of how to handle the firing mechanism. It's like all of them know what it's like to be on the battlefield, and none of these other people do. So there's that sense of they know something that everyone else does not, and they just have to go back. Now, again, Frederica is a big manipulator. She gets Raiden to make her the food. I love Raiden as a character. He's probably, of the five, I know a lot of people like Sheen, and Sheen's fine. Sheen's a little bit of a Debbie Downer for me. I'm like, come on, Sheen. I'm waiting for Sheen to show more sides of himself, because right now he has depth, he has layers, but he's just so dour sometimes. I'm like, come on, Sheen. The one little smile we get out of him in this episode, I'm like, yes, more of that, please. But that's not his character. Raiden is more of my type of character, where Raiden can be serious. He has this kind of like big brother vibe to him, but he also is so, there's just layers to Raiden. I think Raiden of the 5 is the most developed at this point. And you see the most dimension to his character. He feels the most lived in character. But yeah, then he questions like, how'd you know this about Sheen? Because, how did you know? You shouldn't know that. And that's when everybody shows back up. So yeah, then they all decide that they need to go back to the battlefield. And we see it's a little sprig of flowers like growing up through the cracks. And there are 5 little daisies. They're springing up out of the snow like daisies, but there's 5 of them. So there we go, right? And then I like the president's like, well, are you sure? What about these gifts? I kind of wanted to see what he got them for Christmas, or the holy birth. I wanted to see what he got them for that. Also, I like that they have a nice little a peppermint Yule log in the middle of the table there. I also like that you have you have Theo and Karina and Anju and Raiden on the couch there. And then on either side, there is the Empress, Frederica, and you have Sheen. So it's a nice they're bookending them, which is curious. Fun times. Also, the ceiling, if you look at the ceiling, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Never mind. I thought that maybe the pattern on the ceiling was something special, but it's not. So it's just decorative. So they want to keep going. Yep. We can't pretend to have peace when we're not. That's the life we chose. Don't take it away from us. And that's when she's like, she says, silence, Ernst. She's like, damn RuPaul. She's like, silence. I've made my decision. Bring back my girls. Like, that's literally Frederica. And in this is the speech that I was like, are you a small child? She's like, you're not so stupid to miss that you'd be the same as the Republic. Yeah. Which she's been listening to their thoughts. So, of course, she would know what they're thinking. But yeah, basically, the funny thing is, the Republic, I don't think, would have pity on them. They would just kill them. They're very apathetic about them, which is funny. And then she starts her spiel. She's like, they're not young, ignorant children. And if they want to go, let them go. And I'm like, it's irony, a small child is telling them that they're not ignorant children. If they want to go, let them go. And then Raiden's like, well, it wouldn't do to say you're going on ahead, only to have someone else go first. Raiden's like, we all have to go together, right? You're not just going to let that happen. He's like, And the president's like, well, fine, but on one condition, you have to go through the special officers training school and become officers. He's like, you're not going to just go out and be rogues. You're going to go through our training, our procedure, and then when the war's over, you'll get benefits because you're an officer, right? You're not going to just be guinea pigs. You're going to just go through and do this, right? You'll have more opportunities than the enlisted soldiers. And I want you to have as many choices available when the war is over. And yeah, they're like, well, we thought we were just going to die. And then they all sit down. And she's like, I understand you've got nothing but your pride to keep you together. Which is interesting, because I feel like they have more than just pride. There's a lot of other things going on under the surface, but that's no way for a complete human being to live. Now, what she's saying there, basically, is she's like, I get that what you're saying is you guys are going to die on the battlefield and you're not even thinking about the future. But she's like, that's not human. You need to think of the future. You need to think of what's going to happen beyond this. Don't settle for the fact that y'all are going to die on the battlefield. That's stupid. And then she sets up, it's blood and soil that make a person who they are. I'm like this child that wanted an omelet and a doll 8 seconds earlier is talking about blood and soil making a person who they are. If you have neither and try to define yourself just by who you personally are, then when you lose sight of that, you'll quickly fall apart. Which is kind of, Sheen's like, who are you talking to? Because that sounds like it's directed towards him, right? Or is she talking about herself? Right? And she says, who are you talking to, princess? And she's like, and that's when she's like, I'm not a princess. And the president's like, are we doing this expo dump now? Maybe we shouldn't say that. But they don't understand the history of Jihad. So here's the thing. The president probably thinks this is information they should not know. None of them know the history of Jihad because like they said episodes ago, they didn't really go to school to learn things. They don't really know a lot about this country except it fell to Legion. So this probably, her saying this now doesn't have the impact that it might have later on when we find more out about her royal family. It's probably going to impact a bit harder later, but I like that she makes this grandiose spin. He's like, no, 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 no. And she makes this big, my name is Augusta Frederica Adele Adler. Adele Adler is a terrible last name. I'm like, what would you do, Adele Adler? That's like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Augusta Adele Adler is woof. Why did your parents give you that name? I'm going to call her Frederica because I like Frederica better. She's like, my true name is this, and I'm the last empress of the Empire of Geod, the very people who ordered the Legion to invade the rest of the continent 10 years ago. So she's like, I'm the last of my people who basically ordered your people to be wiped out. And I like that they're like, well, you know, okay. I like that they're like, well, but you know, that was in the past at San Magnolia. I like that they acknowledge, they're like, yes, your people in the past ordered the invasion, but right now in the present, San Magnolia is being awful to our people. So we're kind of more mad at San Magnolia than you all, ironically enough. So, and plus, I think they're assuming that she was not the one that directly ordered the invasion. It was her family. So they're like, well, we're not mad at you. You didn't do the order, so that we know. You didn't do it, so why are we mad at you? Like, just whatever. But she makes it being like, if you're going to judge me, now's the time. If you got something to say, now's the time. If you want to be mad at me. But that goes back to them all saying, we're not going to be like the people that oppressed us. So them oppressing her just because of her lineage, that would make them hypocrites. So they're not going to do that. No, they're not going to do that at all. And they're like, we don't know, but it was the Republic who took everything from us, so we're not going to suddenly forget that now. Don't insult us. And he's like, also, how old were you 10 years ago? And she doesn't answer that question. And I'm like, son of a bitch, answer it. Tell us how old she is. We need this timeline. But, and then, oh, there's a sixth Daisy that's popped up, right? I admire your pride, so let me make a request of you, 86. And now there's a sixth Daisy that's popped up showing her going alongside them. My thing is, what is she going to do on the battlefield? What is she going to do? Like, what is she going to be, like a handler in the situation where she stays in the control tower and helps them? She's like, help me destroy my knight's ghost. And Sheen's like, was he taken by a legion like Rey? And she's like, yes, the legion who attacked you just before you reached here. And then he's like, well, how do you know? And she's like, the power of the blood I inherited allows me to see glimpses of the present and past of those I meet. Hello, anime power. And it shows her eyes glowing red. So she can glimpse the present and past of those that she meets. So, interesting. Interesting. So I don't know. Is Fido infused with the blood of the royal family? I don't know. But the glowing red eyes, I'm assuming, is just like a symbolic thing. It's not, her eyes don't legit glow red. That'd be weird. But interesting. And I bet Sheen's like, well, wait a minute. If you're the royal family and you have this power, that's a power that I have. So am I related to the royal family? Is that a thing? And then I do like that Sheen is smiling there at the end where he's like, okay, he's gonna take the piece of Rey with him and go to help her destroy this brother of hers so that she can have peace like him. I like, as my dogs are chasing each other now, but it's fine. We're almost to the end of the episode. I like that Sheen and Frederica kind of have that bond already. It feels like a sibling bond. I like it. I like their uniforms as the officers. They're neat. I like the black. Again, you have a black uniform contrasting the white uniform of San Magnolia, which is fun. Although, let it be known that Lena is wearing a black uniform too in honor of the fallen, but, you know, is that going to come to play later on? I don't know. I'm curious that Frederica's outfit is a little different. I'm curious about that, but I don't feel like Frederica is really going to be going on the battlefield. I feel like she's going to be staying in like the command tower or something, giving orders. Maybe, and maybe she can communicate with all of them. I don't know. We'll find out as I spill coffee everywhere. But yeah, so that was a really good episode. I liked that. I liked that episode a lot. I'm very curious about Frederica. Like I said, Frederica's character I could see being very polarizing. I like her character. She's not, if she is an actual child, then she's maybe not as realistic as the rest of the show is, which is interesting. But if she's older than she looks, which I'm hoping she is, then that will make more sense. So, and she didn't answer the question, so we don't know how old she actually is. I don't want to know, obviously, but I'm not checking comments, so it's fine. but yeah, curious. So I'm very excited to see next episode. I'm still not watching the OP next episode, but we'll see how it goes. And then after that, I supposedly can. So yay. But in any case, I am excited to see what happens next week. So. If you want to leave thoughts down below in comments, you can. Maybe eventually I'll come back to them. I don't know. Might glance at them if they don't seem spoilery. Who knows? I'm a sucker for comments. I can't help it. But I'm going to try not to be influenced by anything. And so far, that's been helpful for me enjoying the series. So, yay. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And I'll see you all very soon with more 86.